it's Drew. And this episode is actually from a November live stream, which is part of our new series called Renegade Thinkers Live. And this was the first episode. There are definitely a whole new set of logistical challenges and plenty of surprises when recording live, but it was truly delightful to sit down with two savvy CMOs, Rashmi Vittal of Conversica and John McCrea from Amplify.ai, to talk all things conversational AI. You'll learn a lot from this episode. I know I did. Did you know that bots, I should say intelligent virtual assistants or IVAs have come such a long way that they not only can filter through high quality leads and in CenturyLink's case, deliver an 8-to-1 ROI, they can also align marketing and sales teams and speak to customers in a remarkably human way. Rashmi and John have a lot of great insights to share in this episode for B2B marketers. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the premiere episode of Renegade Thinkers Live, a show that promises to be long on marketing insights and short on overhyped buzzwords. We'll be drinking in the latest tactics and the coolest gin. Yep, this may be the only live marketing show that also features a gin tasting. This show is being live streamed via our new friends at Restream. And if you want to drink along at home, today's gin is Letherbee. I'm your host, Drew Neisser, live from my home studio in New York City. And as I like to say on my podcast, hello, Renegade Thinkers. On today's show, we're going to have a conversation about conversational AI. If you don't know what that is and why it's likely to transform B2B marketing, you've come to the right place. We've got two human experts to help you understand how savvy marketers are already using virtual assistants, aka bots, to accelerate the sales process and improve the customer experience. It's exciting, it's mind-boggling, and it's a bit scary. So I, for one, am really glad we have a gin tasting that will be starting in about 25 minutes from now. Alrighty then, let's meet our guests. First up is Rashmi Vittal, the CMO of Conversica, a Silicon Valley veteran with stints at IBM, Oracle, and SAP, and perhaps most famously known as the star of episode 201 of Renegade Thinkers Unite. Rashmi, welcome to Renegade Thinkers Live.
Hey, Drew. Happy to be here and great, spending this time with you.
Well, some might think you're a glutton for punishment for being being interviewed by me twice in a matter of months, but we'll let you off the hook here.
Hey, you toss a little gin in there, and I'm going to show up.
Oh, there you go. All right, I knew there was a good reason we had that. Anyway, let's start on a very human note. What makes you happiest in your life?
Oh my God, that's deep.
I know.
I think I need a shot before I get into that question. That's a toughie. Okay, you got me on the hook. Okay, real quick. What makes me happiest in my life? I mean, I think it's just feeling like I'm being the best version of myself and helping others be that as well. So, holding myself to kind of keeping in check, that don't take yourself too seriously or don't get too intense, like ratchet it down and have some fun, as well as making sure you're doing good things. So, I'm happiest when I feel like I'm doing the things that I know I can be doing and I should be doing that allows me to be my best self. I mean, that's truly true. And then also, I'm happiest when I work out. Let's just be honest. The endorphins kick in and it makes you feel really darn good.
Well, that's great. Yeah, and I appreciate those comments. When you think about your career as a whole, this is the renegade question, the toughie. What do you think is the most renegade thing you've done?
Renegade as a whole, the most renegade thing I've done. If in the context of as a B2B marketer?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Wow. I really loved what we did last year at the OpStars event in 2019, where we transformed the room that they gave us into a beer hall, like a tap room.
Very cool.
And the whole idea was to come in and untap your full, sales and marketing potential. That was the whole idea with an intelligent virtual assistant, augmented workforce. And we had the most people in our room. People were coming in, had demos, all that stuff for sure. But it was the environment of a living room quasi gastropub, and people just had fun. They had a tremendous amount of fun with it. A lot of people were hanging around, drinking some good beers. We made sure we had good beers. We had pretzels. We had stuff where people could come, sit down, have community, and talk, shop. And I think that to me was pretty fun and renegade-ish, perhaps.
Oh, well, totally. And it really, hearing that story makes me miss a physical event so much. That's one of my favorite things in all of it. And we can connect the dots from what makes you happy, a little bit of fun, and it sounds like drinking, and an event that you did, and it sounds like drinking. Anyway.
Oh my God, if my mom sees this, she'll come in. I'm really
no, she's a teetotaler. Trust me. Anyway, all right. Well, that's a fun and surprising. By the way, this is a live show, and we have prepared our guests, but some things are surprises, and we wanted to keep it that way. So now let's welcome our second guest, John McCrea, who's the CMO of Amplify. Hey, John.
Howdy.
He's a serial entrepreneur since 1994. John co-founded two companies, Media Spike in 2012 and Ethereal VR in 2015, and joined Amplify in 2018. Hey, John, welcome to Renegade Thinkers Live.
Thank you, and apologies. A leaf blower has shown up out of nowhere.
You know what?
I think we're quieting him down.
I think you're okay. You're okay. It's funny. We had a helicopter flying over our apartment building here in NYC. So, anything can happen on a live show. But you were expecting, I know, a question, but not this one. My question for you is, why do you think the world would be better off if women ran everything?
Well, that's a great question. Certainly, when you look at the mess that the country is trying its best right now to transition out of, there's an awful lot of thanks for the leadership role of women in exercising their vote wisely.
I'm absolutely in love with the Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Yeah.
She's an amazing lady. And whether it's Andrea, it occurs to me, and I'm sure others, that there are some just outstanding women leaders in the world, and we need more of them. All right. Well, that is a good subject for the two of us. But let's talk conversational AI. And Rashmi, why don't you come back in? Thank you, Melissa, for that. We're really testing Restream here. John, can you give an example of how one of your clients is using conversational AI?
Sure. It's as you know, we've been very involved in the 2020 election cycle, applying conversational AI to do voter engagement at superhuman scale. And there's so many examples there, but one in particular that I think is quite pioneering is, you may have heard of this organization, Vote Vets. They've been doing some great ads this election cycle and really great work. And together with them, we pioneered using conversational AI to do virtual canvassing in battleground states. And that was a way to find either, in fact, we were looking for undecided voters who could be potentially persuaded. And that was all done through conversational AI, and then with a seamless handover to a human volunteer.
I realized one thing right away, which was that I should have asked both of you, and I meant to ask both of you, can you give a definition of what conversational AI is in 10 words or less? Rashmi, why don't you give it a shot?
So conversational AI is a series of technology components that allow a program to actually engage in a natural language conversation with a person. And it's part of an overall solution, but it is a key component to do that natural language engagement.
Okay. And John, how about a description of what that is, 10 words or less?
Sure. I think of it's the Turing test in the narrow. So purpose-oriented conversation that might be hard to tell whether it's a human or software.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And speaking of artificial intelligence, I'm just going to ask, hey, Google, what is conversational AI?
On the website bold360.com, they say, conversational AI is the technology that makes that possible. It allows artificial intelligence technologies like chatbots to interact with people in a human-like way. By bridging the gap between human and computer language, it makes communication between the two easy and natural.
Okay, thanks, Google. So a few more than 10 words or less, but it's sort of fun to use a conversation with a bot, if you will, to talk about that. So Rashmi, give us an example of how one of your clients is using conversational AI.
Yeah, so our clients are a little different. So we really sell into, enterprise, mid-market, even SMB markets, but more in that B2B space. So around technology, telecom, manufacturing, financial services, et cetera. And so let's just pick a telecom company. CenturyLink uses our sales AI assistant to contact 90,000 prospects every quarter. And through this, that it's contacting prospects very similar to what you would expect a sales development or business development rep do. It can actually begin the engagement with the lead or prospect. It will send out a different personalized email with every cadence. It will persistently do that until it receives a response back. When it receives a response back from the prospect, it can easily understand and decipher what's being said, what is the intent or the request within that response, and then it will craft a message in kind appropriate to its understanding and send it back to the prospect. Now, that could be the prospect might say, hey, I'm sales ready. I'm ready to have a conversation with sales. It might say, hey, come check back later. I'm not really ready. It might say, hey, help me learn more. In any one of these cases, the IVA, the Intelligent Virtual Assistant, which is not a bot, and we'll get into that a little later.
Good, thank you.
Intelligent Virtual Assistant will actually take the right action and send the right email back to the prospect. And it will notify the rep that owns that contact and account. And it knows that because it has direct integration into your CRM. So it will do a lot of things. It's a very busy bee. But what this has been able to do with CenturyLink is identify over 30 to 100 qualified hot opportunities each week for them that has resulted in delivering an 8-to-1 ROI on a monthly basis. So just imagine that. You take something like 90,000 of these prospects, you're able to work them. You're getting 100 hot qualified opportunities. These are people who are raising their hands saying, I'm ready to have a sales conversation. And that is resulting in over 800% on ROI based on what they spent on us. It is just a tremendous, just kind of force multiplier for a lot of organizations that we're seeing, especially when you're especially when you're trying to solve that common problem that marketing and sales have, which is sales always wants what? Better quality leads, right? And marketing feels like they're sending it to them. Well, the only way sales will accept those leads, or at least have a better likelihood of accepting those leads, is if they're actually raising their hand saying, I'm ready to have a conversation.
Right. And so there's a little bit of begging going on between marketing and sales. I'm begging you to make this an SQL. Okay, so my question on this is, first of all, it's fascinating, but there are things I don't quite know if I got all the steps in there. At any point in time in this virtual engagement, does the prospect know that they're dealing with a virtual?
So here, 9 out of 10 of our when we talk to our customers, right? They say 9 out of 10 times their customers have no idea that the person that they were engaging with was not human. In fact, it's so human-like and so polite and professional in the way that it's interacting that oftentimes they'll even say, gosh, I loved Ashley. Can she join our call? Is she going to join us here today? So that just tells you that they don't know that they're interacting. Now, what we advise clients is, it's up to you. If you want to state in there, and let's say whether it's, if you can name your IVA anything you want. If you've named it, Roger, if you've named it, Candace, doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where you could say this is a sales assistant, this is a business development assistant. You could put something in there that lets them know that it's not a real person. But oftentimes they don't look at that detail. They just go, wow, this is a very natural, polite interaction. I'm enjoying this experience.
And is this interaction going from it's email primarily, or is it email and text as well, SMS as well as all of the above?
Yeah, so we support 3 channels. We support website chat. So if you have website visitors coming onto your website, and oftentimes they're just trying to, especially in a B2B marketing world, you're just trying to connect them a lot to information that they're seeking, right? So whether that's I want to find the product page, or I want to find these resources, or maybe they were ready to contact you or schedule a demo and you can easily get that scheduled, or maybe they need to talk to a rep or ask a question and get a quick answer back. So we support website chat, but the key thing about that, and what's really cool, is that it's not just a chatbot. We really believe that the intelligent virtual assistant itself speaks on chat, email, and SMS, so that you can deliver that continuity of conversation across the channels for that, for that contact, that prospective buyer, or even customer, right? So yes, it can also then be somebody of, let's say you came in through an inbound marketing lead, like content syndication, webinar programs, whatever. As that's flowing through the system, those leads can wind up in a campaign, let's say in a CRM campaign. And then that will trigger the IVA to begin the outreach, much like an SDR would, begin that inbound outreach via email. And then it can engage in that email back and forth. The cool thing too is that depending where you are in that engagement, if you wanted to actually, for your buyer's journey, if you said it made sense for that email engagement to then switch into an SMS text, then that's another option that can happen. We use the email to drive the opt-in, so everything is privacy compliant on mobile, and then we can continue the conversation on SMS text. So the IGA can actually speak across chat, email, and SMS, and can do so driving that continuity of message based on where the buyer is in the journey.
Okay, so John, what do you make of that relative to what you all do?
Actually, I was so fascinating to hear, because it's very similar to how we think of it, although we're on the B2C side. So, and we use the phrase branded virtual assistant because often our client is a brand and we're helping them engage with prospects, consumer prospects and customers at much higher scale. But that notion that the conversation is stateful,
right?
And that it's omni-channel. It's just that in B2C, in addition to web chat and SMS, it's everything from Facebook and Instagram and Messenger and WhatsApp, but also all the way over to conversational ad units. And now with Google Business Messages to conversations that can arise out of search or maps that have continuity.
Okay, so you wrote an interesting article. I think you just published it yesterday, and I love this line. It said, the first 10 billion engagements are the hardest. And I had to laugh because that's a lot of engagements, John.
It really is. And I've used that to frame the idea that, conversational AI is hard. It's just now crossing into the mainstream, and we've had to overcome a significant chicken and egg problem, which is machine learning is at the core, but machine learning has become so successful now in the world of AI because of the existence of large data sets. So for image recognition, if you have a large number of photographs that you know what they are, you can train the AI on that. In conversational AI, ideally, you would want to have a large conversational data set, but most NLP engines have been trained on book prose, which is to say perfect spelling, punctuation, sentences. And what we see in B2C messaging-based communication is a lot more vernacular, slang, emojis, misspellings. So we had to build our own NLP engine that could be really ideally suited to that.
Got it. And my question for you, we just put the link to John's article in the notes there. So Rashmi, to get your system to work, I mean, did you need, how did you get enough information into the system so that this virtual assistant was really smart enough?
Yeah, and so, not unlike John's situation, I mean, we've been around for, 12, 13 years, right? So we've had the benefit of having, hundreds of millions of interactions flowing through our system, which has just really created robust AI, data models in our platform that allows then our IVAs to perform with really a high degree of accuracy. We have a 98% accuracy rate in the way that we comprehend and take action on any messages that we're receiving. And so that's really high. And in fact, I would submit that that's higher than your average sales development rep in terms of, the level of accuracy and decision making that it's able to do. So that's really important. There's no doubt that you need to have a data-rich backbone of the various interactions feeding your systems. And I think with the focus on the use cases that we support, we've been able to really get that kind of that groundswell of input, the data input into our system, so that it can be that accurate.
So if I'm a BDR, that's brand development rep, should I be looking for a new career?
So BDR, a sales development or business development rep.
Well,
so
you tell me which one should be is going to be replaced by your Ashley, the virtual assistant.
Yeah, so it's going to be that inbound SDR. They better get on that AE track pretty fast. But in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, I think where you see this going is I've always said what can be automated will be automated. It's just a matter of time. And what we're finding is that the whole pursuit around lead qualification, really finding whether those leads are sales ready or not, especially on those inbound leads, is something that we're really doing well. Now, to the point of what we're seeing is, are we right now entirely replacing SDR or BDR teams? No. We're not. What we are seeing, though, is that, and we're not suggesting that either, what we're seeing is that instead of having to hire those 10 SDRs that you think you need to hire, maybe you only need to hire 4 or 5, and one IVA will cover the rest, right? And so that really creates a different dynamic within how you're thinking about your sales workforce in the future. Because if this is able to serve up more, then you just need more people to take it on the receiving end and push it down, from that SQL all the way to close one.
So when they need to talk to a human, there is a human to be talked to. So Gabby Zeiderfeld, a CMO that has been on Renegade Thinkers Unite and is in the world of emotional intelligence, asks that, and I have to read her first question. Hang on, let me pull it up. She first question was related to the fact that AI is transactional and lacks emotional intelligence. First of all, do you agree with that? And second of all, how do you fix that?
I think it's comes down to what is kind of a new job title, which is in this world of conversational AI, the UX design challenge is fundamentally different than what a generation of web designers have become so good at. So this emotional intelligence piece of it really is fundamentally about design. That's understanding where are you likely to get friction points? How can you phrase answers to that give the equivalent of empathy while in the absence of actual emotion? So
Rashmi, what do you think? Is AI just that doesn't have that emotional intelligence, and is that a limitation?
Well, like anything else, I think the emotional intelligence can be programmed and built into the AI models. And so it takes time, and it takes a lot of testing to make sure that the nuances of the language don't get misinterpreted. But I don't see any reason why you couldn't build that, as long as it's appropriate to the use cases and the personas that you're supporting, right? In terms of who's on the receiving end of this. But I think it is important, and I think you will see that evolve over time. And if I would add is that not only do you need to see that, but you also need to think about empathy comes with memory, right? And just the experience one has had with that person. I mean, there's empathy in real time, like when you hear something for the first time, even if it's from a stranger, how do you react to it? But there's also this notion that I submit that IVAs are going to really help along the entire customer revenue lifecycle, not just in one part of it, so from website visitor to prospective buyer to customer to advocate, right? There are different instances where an IVA is going to be used. And the key is, can that IVA remember and have memory and context about what that journey was between the customer and the vendor that they're interacting with? And if they can they apply that to deliver on that, continue to deliver on that human-like personalized experience? And my answer to that is yes. It's just going to take time to build out, but I think it's totally doable.
So
I would add, if I may, one thought
please.
here, which is, when we took on the political market opportunity, we knew that we were going into the very deepest end of the pool with respect to conversational AI. Right now in America, political discourse is so polarized, it's broken. Humans are having trouble talking to each other in an empathetic way. And we've found at scale millions of voters. For example, our clients have all been Democratic, but we've run into voters across the spectrum, and we've had in-depth conversations with hundreds of thousands of Trump supporters. And many times they come in quite angry, and we have found ways to de-escalate, to get them to engage, and to feel like finally someone's listening to me.
Wow. I have to get a clarification from Rashmi. IVA, the I know stands for what?
Intelligent.
Intelligent virtual assistant. Okay, intelligent. Got it. All right. Some of this is kind of mind-boggling. It also, I'm imagining this scenario. So I happen to have a very public footprint, and I've seen applications, I think it's XIQ, which has the ability to just look at someone's social profile and then create a persona for someone to sell against. And I'm imagining that your system could also, in either case, suck in all of the social data that is out there, and therefore be so much smarter and potentially empathetic to this individual. How much of this process is gathering some of that external data, and at what point do we cross the line from sort of helpful to creepy?
So, well, look, I think in any situation, you need to follow the data privacy and compliance regulations that are out there, right? And when it comes to, so I'll take this from kind of my perspective. When it comes to what is the profile of the customer, right? And there's different ways to build a customer profile, and especially there are kind of unidentified, unknown ways, right? Like if you think about cookie IDs and what it captures and behavioral data, et cetera. And then you think about deterministic data, which is the customer has voluntarily provided information, right? They have opted in. If you take that opted in data and you can use that to create a profile to drive the personalization, that's great. When you start getting, and that's internally managed and maintained data. When you go outside of the four walls, you're going outside and you're probably connecting through an API. And most of the APIs you're connecting into, what the data you're getting access to has in and of itself privacy, constraints or restrictions, et cetera. So you're working in good faith with the vendor on the other side, the partner vendor that you're dealing with. But the information that you're acquiring is indeed information that person, like the customer profile, has allowed you to receive, right? And so you are then using that as building out further your profile. But I think, look, as we continue to kind of expand the boundaries on this, and we test, I'd say, the boundaries on this. Yeah, I think over time there's got to be additional, not additional. We're going to continue to evolve the data privacy, rules and regulations to make sure that not too many things are falling through the cracks that might feel too creepy.
Okay, John, you have anything to add on this issue of privacy and
yeah, I'd say we definitely aren't doing that kind of scraping of the public information. What we do find is that having a conversation with someone through a messaging channel, there's an intimacy to it and a willingness people have to share. And what we think works well all along the customer journey is the more that the person shares, the more that we can personalize the experience for them in a way that's adding value. In e-commerce scenarios, where we're often integrated with the store itself, like through a Shopify integration, in that way we can also get buyer history. So essentially welcoming someone back, knowing who they are, knowing what they like, what they care about, kind of like a concierge.
We're back and we're talking about, first of all, John, I feel like yours is more of a bot, and Rashmi, you've corrected me and called this a virtual assistant. Is there a difference between a bot and a virtual assistant?
Well, first of all, bot's a terrible word.
Oh, thank you.
Well, that's a bad word, but okay, fine.
It's a word that's gotten worse since the 2016 election. Now associated with Russian bots and trolls. I think also, chatbot is a term that evokes technology from, 5 years ago or something like that. Very simple things that are more tap oriented and which fundamentally don't do natural language processing. So I think, we're a generation beyond that, and we're now with conversational AI climbing out of the trough of disillusionment from the chatbot era.
Got it, I think. Okay, so I am not allowed to use the word bot for the rest of the show. Perfect. Okay, I just got notification. This is a live show. This is the first time we are using Restream. We're streaming simultaneously to LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube.
Wow.
YouTube is now live. It wasn't initially for whatever reason. So we're live on all three channels. So be smart for the rest of the show. If you were to, let's face it, probably a bunch of marketers are listening now or will tune in later on. What do you think are the most effective ways that marketers aren't using the tools right now that they should be? And let's talk, I know that, John, you're a B2B marketer who sells to B2C organizations, but we'll start, Rashmi, with what are they missing? Why isn't everybody doing this right now?
Well, I think it's a great question. I think there's a lot of confusion in the marketplace. Look, if you look at the Lumascape and the MarTech stack, there's 5,000 different vendors. I mean, it's daunting for marketing leaders to figure out, how do I stitch together the right tech stack to support my business? But that being said, time in and time out, again and again, it always comes back to this issue of I don't believe, these are marketing leaders are saying this, I don't see the return on the marketing investments I know are good and I'm making, right? And sales leaders going, I'm just not getting enough pipeline to help me close my deals. It's how many of you have your weekly pipeline calls and forecast calls where this is the conversation, right? And then you go scurry off and have your side conversations with the leaders to figure out, how am I going to fix this? Well, what if you could actually surface more sales-ready opportunities earlier and faster in your sales cycle, such that your salespeople can focus on those, right? And it's tough because here it's taking technology, but it's also working alongside people to determine kind of, is this a qualified opportunity or not? And so I think it's just something where from a marketing leader perspective, they've got to get their head around, because then it could start solving this chronic problem that they keep seeing. And then from sales leadership's perspective, hey, look, what the pandemic has taught us is that salespeople need to be digital first. They have to be digital first now. Gone are the days where you can go have a beer and close a deal, right? Like you could have a beer, it's just now through Zoom. And so, but being a digital savvy salesperson is going to require more than just getting on a Zoom call. And what it's going to require is actually being able to augment your sales teams with these type of intelligent virtual assistants or these AI technologies to help bring them more pipeline into the fold. And if it's a higher quality pipeline, then they'll have a better chance of closing it. And that's really kind of the thing, I think, both from the marketing side and the sales side. Here's one anecdote. We always run, when we run events and we survey the people who've attended. Even I just came off of another event, people attended. You know what, always a top 5 topics that comes up is how can I drive better marketing and sales alignment? Well, here's a tool that can actually help you do that if you implement it along with your people and your process. And it's totally feasible to do.
Wow, we're going to solve all the problems. It's funny, I suspect if I were starting a B2B marketing organization from scratch, which was well-funded, and I was in Silicon Valley, I would start with an IVA, right? And I wouldn't even hesitate to it. The challenge I imagine you're facing is the one that Brent Adamson talks about is the simple sort of the pain of change versus the gain of change. And they can't see the gain of change relative to the pain of change. So, John, how does that, what slows your prospects from, taking the leap and adopting your technology?
Yeah, I'd say that, to really push conversational marketing is AI-driven conversational marketing is a little bit of an evangelical sale at the moment. What we found, though, is there's a crawl, walk, run, which is any consumer brand that has any level of engagement has a really interesting pain point where a small human team is trying to keep up with an ever-growing volume of engagement, say on Facebook and Instagram. And in the time of the pandemic, there's been this hockey stick growth in e-commerce and in social engagement. And so the volume has gone up, and some of that volume is positive stuff, some of it's negative. And if your human team can't jump on it right away, there's a possibility for emotional contagion in the negative. And so being able to, even without doing conversational engagement, using natural language processing to identify places where the humans ought to do hiding of a comment, liking of a comment, public reply to a comment, doing those as suggestions for the human team. And then once we prove that the AI is capable, doing that in an automated way, 24/7. So it's it's a super easy sell.
Interesting. And what I'm hearing, and we had this conversation recently with another CMO, is this notion of augmented intelligence. And is just, it really makes a lot of sense to me when you start that way. Where you ended, John, was replacing the human. But part of this is augmented, where we're really helping you. And that's where a lot of robotics is going as well. It's not the robot doing the work, it's the robot helping the human do the work, which is
right. And often it's like a small human team that's paid 9 to 5 in one time zone. So they start their day out trying to dig out of a deep hole that could have been handled in an automated way overnight, or they could start with a report that says all that stuff, you only need to focus on this 10% of it instead of wading through all 100% of it.
Got it. Okay. Well, so Gabby, who's been true to her name, I guess you could say, has another question for us. And she's going to just kill me when I see her next. Do you have any experience applying your conversational AI in healthcare for assisting, and I love this question, assisting in detecting depression or suicide prevention? What other applications do you see being enabled beyond marketing, that's sort of for social betterment?
The specific question, I haven't seen that, but it's I think a fruitful area for folks to pursue. One of the deployments I'm most proud of is during the pandemic, the Indian government asked us to deploy an omni-channel system to help them battle COVID-19, misinformation, and to help better inform the public. And one example of that is through Google Business Messages, people searching for the nearby food or shelter, of which there are like almost 12,000 of them around the country. You could search, get the result, and instead of call, it had message. And so that folks could tap in, find out what are the hours of operation, does this place have food or not, do they still have food, does the shelter have availability? So being able to really help with that kind of civic engagement at a millions of people superhuman scale is really rewarding.
There's a little irony here to me in that we're using these robotic smart computer things that are not bots to synthesize and go through and try to help people when we know that they were responsible for misinformation. It's sort of ironic that we'll use the same tool to help provide real information that once provided misinformation. Makes total sense to me. Okay, this is the moment in the show where I say, let's ask Ben Franklin. And it's a little bit of a random thing, but Ben happens to be my hero, and so I get to do it. Now, I could just randomly go to a page and pull up some wisdom, and what was one of the things that he said was, a good example is the best sermon. And certainly you both provided great examples. But the other quote that I wanted to share that sort of made me laugh, let's see, and which is great, and it speaks to where we started, Rashmi, is let thy discontents be secrets. Like, just keep them to yourself for the moment. Just sort of let it be a happy person. So anyway, thank you, Ben, for joining the show. By the way, one of the reasons why I love bringing him up is this was a guy who really believed in technology, and his one regret about dying, he had an incredible life, was that he wasn't going to get to see where all the inventions were going to end up. And when he saw the first hot air balloon launched in Paris, some observers said, well, what good is that? And Franklin rebutted, what good is a baby? He had the ability to see that these technologies could grow into something, and he didn't know where they were going, but they could be something amazing. So what's interesting to me with today's conversation is I suspect we're at the tip of the iceberg. We're just getting started with conversation AI. And it's really important that the people who are using it and applying it are trustworthy, and that they bring sort of data, that they bring integrity to this. At what point in time do you feel like this industry needs to be regulated? I know this is a hard question to ask, but we're in the middle of a, sort of interesting time. And can we trust the practitioners, whether they're marketers or companies like yours, to be to not use these tools in nefarious ways? I don't know. It's sort of one of the criticisms that advertising has always felt. You're selling things to people that they don't want. It's a tough question to wrap your mind around, but Rashmi, help me out here.
Well, so, I think part of that we're really trying to solve for now. Look, stronger in Europe and Canada and some other regions than here in the US. California obviously has taken a big step forward in driving better consumer data privacy laws. But, one of the things I'd say is that, as a marketer, if you're running your organization with integrity, you should not be doing outreach to customers who are not interested in hearing from you, right? In that sense. So there are different tools. Again, if you use technology to aid you in this, there are different tools to keep you in check. So have they opted in? Do you have that consent? Are you managing that consent? If they've asked to unsubscribe, are you doing it in a proper way? If you're asked, if you have the right to be forgotten and you are being forgotten, are you truly being erased and removed? There are steps that need to be taken and that are already established today that we as operators within our company have to make sure that it's being done. And it isn't just on the marketing leaders' shoulders. It's on the responsibility from the CEO across the board in the organization. So, I would say in terms of how can AI continue to grow, especially conversational AI, to grow that where it might be more manipulative is kind of maybe where you kind of were heading with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to, you always have to do an ethics check in terms of, are you pushing the boundary for good? Are you pushing the boundary for good innovation? Or are you pushing the boundary for what can be interpreted as bad innovation? And so is there a silver bullet, one answer, way of determining that? No, you have to sit down and evaluate what it is you're doing. Like some people may even think, well, hey, if I'm building empathy and emotional intelligence into my AI, is that now considered manipulative? And I would just say, well, if you're expecting that experience from a human to human interaction, why shouldn't you expect that experience from a machine to human interaction? Interesting.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Obviously, bad actors could, wreak havoc with any new technology, this one included. I think for the most part, on the business side of things, existing laws probably are good enough. I think sometimes when we try to regulate a new technology too aggressively, it doesn't allow for some of the best kind of experimentation and blossoming. The idea that I think California law has it that they really want to be clear that every interaction is with software, not with a human. And it's not clear to me that ends up benefiting people.
Yeah. It's funny, as you're thinking about this, I'm thinking about my most recent experience with, I'm going to call it a bot. I don't know if it was Resist Bot or Vote Blue or whichever one, but I actually found it a really good experience. It was one of these where you got a text and then it said, hey, opt in. And then, no, I'd already opted in. Then it said, do you know who your local so-and-so is? Do you know where your voter thing is? Do you know? And it asked a series of questions and then gave me lots of good information and links that were extremely helpful. And I think we're at the point where there are enough people out there who just want to Google something and find the answer, right? They just want to get the answer. And virtual assistants that can get the answer the same way that Google can get you an answer is really actually a very helpful act. And I think that as long as we're thinking about how are we helping our customer or prospects in their use of their time, then it feels like we're in very safe territory. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, our thesis is that we're living in a messaging first world. Our customers, our prospects are, and our engagement tech stack hasn't kept up with that. So we're still offering people to phone into a business, and it's often a terrible experience. People would like immediate self-serve that's respectful of their time and that allows them to communicate through the channels that they want to use.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. And I want to go human to human for a moment. I want you both to sort of say, you've got, Rashmi, I think a lot of folks, when they think of conversational AI, they think of drift, because I think they may have even started that language. I don't know. And I'm curious, why is your conversational AI awesomer? You have 1 minute.
Well, first, okay. So first off, we actually been at this for since 2007 is when we were founded. So I like to actually think we've pioneered and this category around intelligent virtual assistants, where very honestly, conversational AI is a piece of it. The very reason why we don't call it a conversational AI platform in an intelligent automation platform, because you need conversational AI, you need deep learning, you need process automation, you need a lot of pieces working together for it to truly be a human-like interaction and experience, and then for it to be able to actually take the appropriate action based on that interaction. And so, you know, I think John was mentioning this before. There are simple chatbots that are tap oriented that have very little, conversational AI or natural language understanding to it. You know, I would say that some of these website chatbots are growing in their ability to handle it, but it's really rudimentary. And what they really are, especially on website chat, which again, you know, that is website chat, you know, our IVAs talk along website chat, email, and SMS. That is something where it's really just like an intelligent router. It's really trying to route you to the information you seek. So that's where it began. I think this space, though, is going to get really crowded in a hurry. I think I'm getting tired of being compared to chatbots over on the contact center customer service side, because that's where this really began on that side of the house.
Right.
And it's now, okay, now let's move this to the front office and really talk about how marketing, sales, and customer success teams can do this better. But no, this is the other thing I say. First off, not all chatbots are created equally. One, so if you're evaluating a chatbot that is single communication channel functional, do your evaluation. Two, not all of them are AI driven. They might slap the tag of AI on it, may not really be AI. And three, you have to ask, are you meeting your customer at the moment of when they need you along the buyer's journey? And it should be a multi-channel experience, because your buyers are interacting with you multi-channel. So that's why an IVA is really important to be able to do that. And then the context and the language, understanding those intents and requests are not easy. Here's another thing too. People don't know this, right? A lot of people think chatbot, oh my God, I got to go into some 6-month, year-long deployment cycle. I've got to build this thing from scratch. One of the key differences that we provide is the fact that we've pre-built this all for you. So when you deploy an IVA, which you can do in just a matter of weeks, you're getting the knowledge of the over 3,500 IVAs that came before it. And so you're getting it trained on day one, ready to go. You don't have to no coding involved. You don't have to write a single conversation. You get a very deep conversation library that comes with this IVA. And so you're saving yourself a ton of time and a ton of resources. You know, we always say, kick your playbooks to the curb. You don't need to have a playbook, a manual to tell you how you have to configure your chatbot and write your scripts. Like that, you know, is something that we've been very focused on, trying to cut down that time to value in our IVAs.
All right, we're going to kick our playbooks down to the curb. Okay, John, last licks on, 1 minute sort of what opportunities, who would you love to have call you tomorrow as a result of watching this show? Let's just go there. What's the ideal customer for you that will call you?
Really, any high engagement consumer brand can get benefit right out the gate.
Okay.
So Red Bull, if you're listening.
Let's go get Red Bull. We'll tag them in the notes and say, you guys need this and you need it right away. All right. John and Rashmi, you guys are great sports. I'm so grateful for you to be on the show today and be on the premiere of Renegade Thinkers Live. Renegade Thinkers Unite is written and directed by Drew Neisser. Hey, that's me. Audio production is by Sam Beck. Show notes are written by Melissa Caffrey. The music is by the amazing Burns Twins, and the intro voiceover is Linda Cornelius. To find the transcripts of all the episodes, suggest future guests, or learn more about quite possibly the savviest B2B marketing agency in New York City, visit renegade.com. And until next time, keep those renegade thinking caps on and strong.